filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's the Chucky edition, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And hello, everyone who is viewing this, because you can see us sitting here with our brand new Chucky dolls. And if you're listening to this only on audio, go to YouTube.
It's a reason to watch us, yeah.
So yes, for anyone who is, I guess, new to this, normally Micro Queers is what we do to discuss queer horror shorts. But since there is a plethora of horror television this season, and we can't all cover it all on the Patreon, we are going to be subbing out our regular coverage of horror shorts for coverage of Chucky week to week. And welcome to the first episode.
Indeed. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, if only because obviously we've got a queer horror creator in Don Mancini, but also this show is really fucking queer. Like, we've got a queer protagonist, we've got issues dealing with bullying, parents not accepting the sexual orientation of their children, and there's a reasonable amount of camp as well.
Very much so, which is something funny because I saw a lot of the reviews that were like, oh, it doesn't really like seem very realistic. And I was like,
oh my
God.
Okay, so tell me you haven't watched the series without telling me that you haven't watched the series, right?
Well, no, but I mean, like, and it's not to name drop the AV Club, but they were like, oh, like the talent show goes on for way longer than it would in a normal life. And I was like, yeah, but it's like, it's over the top. Like, that's what we're, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But also a primer, everyone. So we are watching these week to week with you. So we will actually not be ahead. So Joe and I, as of this recording, have only seen the premiere episode of Chucky, and we will only be discussing that episode. But we will be spoiling it. So if you haven't seen it, well, if you don't care about spoilers, then go ahead and listen. But if you do, don't listen.
Indeed. Yeah. So today we're only talking about season 1, episode 1, Death by Misadventure, in which basically our teenage protagonist, Jake Wheeler, discovers a Chucky doll at a yard sale. He buys it because he's making an art project, and his dad, who is played by one Devon Sawa with very bad facial hair, does not appreciate it. And things get a little bit bad because, shockingly enough, Chucky is a real life doll with a little bit of extra kick going on.
And I'm like, how do I...
Come on, Chucky, move your goddamn arm.
Oh, actually, he moves pretty well. I got him posed there. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
So okay, let's get this like right off the bat, Joe. What did you think of this premiere?
Okay, so I really like this, and it's interesting because I saw a bunch of critics are actually choosing to cover the show week to week, and part of that is because we've only got a certain number of episodes. So of the 10, I think only 4 were available when it premiered. But I think this is also a show that lends itself very well to week because this first episode gently eases us in. It's like, hey, do you know what Chucky is? Here's a very gentle introduction. There's no Tiffany. There's no Kyle. There's no Andy. So everything we get him on the phone. But everything that we've come to expect from this series has been dialed way back just so that we can get an introduction to these human characters and get a feel for presumably where the first half of this season is going to be.
It's so interesting. So I really, really enjoyed this. It was, I mean, I don't want to say it was funnier than I thought it was going to be, but like I had read some of the early reviews. And again, a lot of the early reviews, it's either just the premiere or it's those first 4 episodes. Yes. So I had an inkling of what to expect, but I just had so much fun with this. Honestly, it was a pilot where I was like, I want this to keep going. My husband was so mad at me when we finished the pilot. He was like, can we watch the next one? I was like, no,
I can't. I'm recording. I have to talk about it.
And it's so funny because in the world of, you know, these reboots of Halloween 2018 or Scream 5 being titled Scream, like this is the 8th installment of the Child's Play franchise, but it does work. For if you're a complete noob, you can watch this and you're fine. Like it doesn't matter if you haven't seen any other films.
Yeah, which is actually really exciting. I think it's the smartest move that Don Mancini could have made because it rewards people who already have a familiarity with a lot of this content, but it doesn't require you to go back and say like, oh, fuck, now I got to watch, 7 movies or 8 movies before I can dip into this show.
And it's just so funny with moments of darkness. But again, with Mancini, I always think he juggles the tones very, very well, because obviously we have a really intense scene of domestic violence in this pilot.
Yes.
Granted, I mean, it's, not like, I mean, I don't want to like way disturbing scenes, but it's like the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in terms of this. But like, given the tone of the rest of the show, it did kind of blindside me with like how upsetting it was, and where it went to after that.
Yeah, so I'm actually doing weekly coverage for Bloody Disgusting, and I'm going to focus on a queer scene or kind of interaction in each episode. And that was actually the one that I chose to cover this week. Right. And I'm not going to expand upon it because I wrote about it. So please go read it, everyone. Take a look at that. But for me, that was like one of the big key moments. And I do think it hits particularly hard if you're a queer viewer, because that's like such a relatable idea. And obviously the series is really going to focus on bullying, and we're going to tackle that with his school peers and that kind of stuff in the coming episodes. But I like the idea that it's like, we're going to tackle it with parents, and then also we're going to get rid of that fucking parent. So let's move on. And
what Mancini has said is, he in this first season, which I mean, again, pray to God we get many more. I don't know what the ratings are for this episode yet, but he said, we're using Chucky as a metaphor for bullying, but also he's not the bully. Like, I mean, at least as of now, he's like the queer avenging angel, which it's so interesting because I mean, the lead character is playing a 13 or 14-year-old boy, and the actor is of age with his character. But I just wonder, like, what would it have been like had I like had a show like this? Because growing up queer, more often than not, you're probably going to be bullied, and I fantasize so much about what I would have done to my bullies if given free reign. And so watching this show, like, even though we haven't gotten really anything outside of the dad who dies, I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see what Chucky does to all these homophobes. Like, I am so excited.
Yeah, because the groundwork is really easily and firmly laid in this first episode, right? We've got this bitch Lexi who starts to get her comeuppance, not just in the science room, but also during that talent show. And then we've got that other kid who just harasses Jake all the time. And then we also have his cousin, Junior, who I think is actually the most nefarious because he's the one who gets the pass from everybody. He's the golden boy.
I agree. And something's going to come up with this kid. I don't know if he's going to be secretly a psychopath or if he's like maybe a closeted queer. I don't know. I'm excited to find out where it goes. But this is such an interesting avenue to take this franchise. And I mean, again, like, you having just watched Child's Play 2 for the first time recently, it's like, my God, how did we, I mean, we know how we got here, but it's such a fascinating road, right?
Well, actually, we don't exactly know how we got here, because if we leave off where Cult, the last movie entry, ended, we've got multiple Chuckies, and Charles Lee Ray has been hypothetically put into, like, his main spirit seems to be inside of Fiona Dourif. Yes. And of course, none of that is in here. So we can anticipate something coming down the road, but I'm interested to see, like, how does this Chucky doll fit into the mythology, and how did it end up in this small little fucking town that has a history and a tragedy to it?
I may have an answer for you, because they did release the first episode on YouTube, and they have an extended version of it. And I didn't watch the extended version, but I kind of clipped through it. And there's basically an extra like 8 minutes after the credits of an interview, but with Mancini and the kids, and then another one with Mancini and the adults. But he pointed out some Easter eggs. And one of them is in the very, very first scene in the garage sale. You see a woman in a red coat and a red hood and blonde hair, and that is meant to be Tiffany.
Oh, interesting. Okay, now I feel like I need to go back and like rewatch it.
No, I felt the same thing. I was like, oh shit. So I mean, granted, he didn't say that Tiffany put Chucky in the yard sale, but that seems to be the implication that I got. But then it becomes, why this yard sale? Like, is there maybe something else here? Because it does take place, in Hackensack, which is where Charles Lee Ray grew up, as we'll find out in the final moments of this episode.
Yes. And I will say, I love the kind of gentle homages that we have to horror classics here. So obviously we're paying a little bit of homage to Halloween with these like mirrored images where it's revealed to be a child version of Charles Lee Ray. And then I also love the gentle alien homage when we see the poor cat checking out what's going on with Chucky. And then of course that cat doesn't last long.
Yeah, Mancini also referenced an exorcist homage, which I'm assuming was the vomit, leading to one of Devon Sawa's character's deaths. And also there are 2 homages to Magic, the John Voight movie about the ventriloquist doll, in this episode as well. I know.
Yeah, that's why I don't like doing Easter eggs, because I'm really terrible at spotting them.
Okay, well, no, okay, but the thing is with Easter eggs, a good Easter egg doesn't affect the plot. Yeah. Like if you know it, cool, you'll catch it and be like, oh, that's cute. But like your enjoyment of the episode doesn't depend on you knowing those things.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, all the things considered, I like the direction that the show is going. I like that this was kind of easing people into the narrative. You know, I've got a good sense of who these preteen characters are. I definitely forgot that Devon Sawa was going to be playing twins, so I'm excited to see what happens now that we've shifted houses to the much more affluent twin.
I mean, I'm not going to spoil what I'm talking about here, listeners, but there is another horror series premiering this month that also deals with twins, and it was handled.
It's out today if you're watching on Amazon.
It's out today as well. Yeah.
Horror twins, so hot right now.
It's so hot right now. I will say though, I mean, and diverting a little bit. So Mancini wrote and directed this pilot. I thought it was shot really well. Like there were so many beautiful shots. The color scheme, it's bright and vibrant. Like it feels like, honestly, like Child's Play 2, like in that factory, you know, you have all these primary colors, but like a prettier, like not ugly version of that.
Yeah, for some reason, and you may think that I'm completely out to lunch here, but I was actually getting a weird kind of Pushing Daisies hyper stylized version, particularly when we get to the twins' house at the end. Like it's obviously meant to be very prim and proper, which again is like Child's Play 2, where it's like, don't touch anything in the house. But it had like a very glossy, very visually aesthetic look. It's a little bit like Curse of Chucky in that regard as well, right?
The house very much reminds me of Curse of Chucky. Although I will say, when this was announced, and I mean, we knew about this show almost 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, because when the remake came out in 2019, and we were all like, oh shit, if this does well, like the show might not happen and this franchise might be over.
Right, which is why we elected not to cover the remake on the Patreon, because we said we are interested to see what they're going to do, but not if it compromises Don Mancini's plans for where this would go. And fucking here we are 2 years later.
But the other thing is this thing, you know, it's on Sci-Fi, and as soon as you hear that, people are like, oh,
it's going to be shit.
Like that sucks. And the production value here to me looks fantastic. Yeah, I think it's shot well. I think it's acted really well. I actually really like it from a YA perspective. These characters feel age appropriate. So you said, you know, the actors are young, but also they speak like legitimate youngsters. And again, not to shade another show that is out today that deals with twins that does not have a good ear for how teens actually speak. It feels like adults writing teen dialogue, whereas Chucky does feel like an adult talked to a child and said, or a teenager, I guess.
Yeah, with a little bit of extra gay sass, like when Lexi says, oh, I shouldn't have smoked so much pot before class, right to a teacher.
So the teacher, by the way, is Precious Chong, who is Tommy Chong's wife, in case y'all don't know that.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yeah, she was the homewrecker in this movie, Homewrecker, with Alex Esso, but she's the science teacher.
Love her.
The second the bully calls Jacob pussy, she's like, mind your fucking business. I was like,
Loved it. I love the idea of sassing back at shitty students.
And that's not something that would happen. Again, so these reviews that are like, oh, like it's not really realistic. I'm like, okay, but this is a hyper realistic world here. Like, if you have seen Bride, Seed, and Cult, probably, like there is camp, and this show will have elements of camp. And so the realism isn't really a factor here for me.
No, that wasn't one of the things I was interested in gauging the show on. Although I will say, you know, like the domestic scenes, like that really fucking uncomfortable dinner scene where the twins' family comes to visit, and it's just like cutting, sort of snide, but still civilized remarks. I was like, this is good. But then also we can veer into the absolute ridiculousness of that talent show, where I honestly thought it was a dream sequence, because I thought there's no way this is fucking happening. No. And then it is.
It's, oh my God, why did my fart smell so good? I died. It was so fun. And also that girl is, I think it's Emily Allen Lynn's sister in real life.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I should have the Wikipedia window, but yeah, it's Olivia Allen Lind. And listeners or viewers, you may know her sister in Dr. Sleep, or Joe and I's favorite TV show, Revenge.
The cutie pie. She's got that baby doll face. Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to talk about, like, you know, the threads that are left open. Like, you know, we can discuss those, but is there anything that like any standout sequences that stood out to you in this episode?
Yeah, I think for me, it was the interaction between father and son that led to like the escalation of domestic violence. but I liked how Mancini weaponizes the use of the F-slur. And again, I talk about that in my article, but I did think that I really liked the way that felt like both a realistic, very uncomfortable scene where a father doesn't accept their child, but also the fact that we get a kind of fuck yeah moment for Jake where he actually does get to clap back at his father.
You know, so I did read your piece before we started this recording. And, you know, we've talked because we don't use the F-slur. I think we have in the beginning. And it's something that I've never been comfortable saying, but until relatively recently, I have gotten comfortable. And again, it's a personal thing, but like, you know, where if I feel like someone is, I don't know, being weird or maybe like, I don't know, tiptoeing around something, I'll be like, oh, it's because I'm a F-slur, and I'll just say it.
But that's you appropriating it, right? Like reclaiming the power. And
it's not a situation like this where it's like, oh, like they're being homophobic towards me. It's just a thing where I'm like, oh, I noticed you might not be, I don't know, like there's something off here. So let me just break this ice.
Let me tell you.
So watching that scene, I was like, oh yeah, it is a fuck yeah moment, despite the fact that he's using this slur. And obviously it's going to ruffle feathers. It's going to like make some people cringe, and because it's supposed to. And I love that Mancini injects that into this.
Yeah, that to me, it's like there's little moments where I'm just like, oh, queer man wrote this, like so in tune with the culture. And I do think that there are moments like that we're going to see throughout the series where if you're queer, you're going to respond to things just a little tiny bit differently. And I love that. I love that we're going to get this on a weekly fucking basis.
Well, I agree. I didn't read every review, but maybe it was because they were trying to avoid spoilers, but I didn't really see a lot of viewer reviews like pinpointing that scene or the use of the F-slur, which I found surprising because it is something that is, I don't want to say uncharacteristic to this franchise, but I don't really know if I've heard that word in this franchise.
Yeah, not in the last couple of iterations, right? Because they're so queer that it's like, who would dare? Like Chucky will cut you, and does.
Yeah, he does. He kills the cat. That was the thing I love when he's like, I know an asshole when I see one, and he's like, oh, whatever, Lexi. I was talking about the cat, but okay. Oh no, the dad. I didn't mean kill my dad. I was talking about the cat.
Too funny. Okay, so talk to me about these dangling threads.
No, I mean, so we have the call from Alex, and based on the trailer, I don't know if you've watched the trailer, but it does seem like that he and Kyle are going to be like secret agents of Chucky murderers. I don't know.
I guess so. Yeah, they're hunting down all the various iterations, right?
Yeah, we get Bree, Lexa Doig's secret, I'm assuming, which is an affair, and I was kind of like, oh, I wonder if he's dipping back into his Curse of Chucky thing with like a secret lesbian affair.
I could see it, and I would love that for Lexa Doig.
Obviously, we know Chucky's going to be targeting Lexi, the character, next, but I don't see her getting killed too early on.
No, I think the kid bully is going to be the one to go next.
Yeah, for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously, we know Tiffany will come back. We know Kyle's going to come back. We know Nika's going to come back. I'm excited to see if we get any others, but I mean, nevertheless, like this premiere satisfied me and left me wanting more in the best way possible. Like I wasn't sitting here like, oh, I wish I got Jennifer Tilly in this episode. Like I was fine with it as is.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is super impressive considering we're talking about a regular, 42-minute episode of television with ads airing on fucking Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's checking all the boxes.
I'm so excited to check out episode 2, which I will be doing as soon as we finish our recording today.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Well, I mean, do we have anything else you want to talk about?
Nah, let's leave it there. I'm curious to hear what other folks thought of the premiere, so be sure to let us know about your opinions.
Yes, please let us know. And until next week's minisode, we can cross out Chucky Season 1, Episode 1.
Indeed, yes. Say goodbye, good guy.
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
Hello, I'm Shelby Scott, the host of Scare You to Sleep, a podcast where I tell you spooky bedtime stories full of creepy sound effects and music that is soothing yet unsettling to help immerse you into a world of horror. This is a show for those of us who have realized horror can be a strange but relaxing escape from reality. Speaking of escapes, sometimes I lead you through guided nightmares, like a guided meditation, but instead of flowery meadows, I take you on a journey through your own personal nightmare. So come get lost in the terror with me. Listen to Scare You to Sleep wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm. Sweet screams.